I mean, you get nervous here and there when it's going, I don't want to say easy, but when the score is in your favor, it's like you have to be cautious. So a little bit nervous, but obviously I'm super happy to be.
9 seconds, but obviously I'm super happy to be here. The 10,000 Filipino fans didn't just show up to watch tennis. They showed up to make history. And without hitting a single ball, they did something nobody on that court expected. Karolina Muchová, fresh off winning the Qatar Open just weeks before Miami, walked onto the Hard Rock Stadium grandstand court as the clear favorite. World number 14 against world number 29, experience against youth, Czech precision against Filipino heart. She had beaten Eala 6-0, 6-2 in exactly 60 minutes, a scoreline so brutal it could have silenced any crowd. But this wasn't just any crowd. What happened after that final point, when Muchova stood there racket in hand, surrounded by thousands of devastated yet still cheering Filipino supporters, genuinely made her feel something she hadn't anticipated walking onto that court. And in her post-match interview, she couldn't hide it. Alex Eala had already lost, but her fans, they somehow won the room. If moments like this fascinate you, hit subscribe right now because we dig into the angles everyone else misses. So, what exactly did those 10,000 Filipino fans do that shook Muchova? Let's start with what Muchova actually said, because the words she chose so carefully in that post-match interview reveal everything about the weight of the room she had just stepped onto. Read that again slowly. This is a woman who just won 6-0, 6-2. She didn't drop a single service game. She converted every break point she had, all 5 of them. She fired 20 winners against 11 unforced errors. By every statistical measure, that was one of the cleanest performances of her season. And she's standing there telling the Tennis Channel interviewer that it wasn't easy. Why? Because of the stands. Because of what was happening in those stands from the first ball to the last. Here's the detail that separates this crowd from every other crowd in tennis right now. Most partisan fan groups go quiet when their player gets bageled in 22 minutes. They shift in their seats. They look at the scoreboard with that particular face, the one that says, "We might be watching something painful." Not these fans. When I lost the first set 6-0, the Filipino fans didn't flinch. When Muchova broke immediately in the second set and raced to a 4-0 lead, threatening a double bagel that would have been Ayala's first in 4 years, the chants didn't stop. They screamed Alex, fight Alex, over and over from stands packed with Philippine flags, fan club shirts, and supporters who had traveled specifically to Miami to be in that building. When I finally held serve to get on the board at 0-4 in the second set, they let out a roar. The crowd exploded. For a moment, it felt like she had won a Grand Slam title rather than avoided complete embarrassment in a match she was clearly losing. That is the power of what those fans brought into the Hard Rock Stadium grandstand that evening. And Muchova felt every second of it. She later admitted that even with the score heavily in her favor, she had to constantly remind herself to stay focused, to keep the pressure on, to not let the atmosphere disrupt her rhythm. A player of her caliber, a 2023 French Open finalist, a 2-time US Open semifinalist, having to mentally manage a crowd's energy while winning convincingly tells you something about the sheer force of what those Filipino supporters put into that court. To understand why this moment hit Muchova the way it did, you need to understand who Alex Eala actually is to the Philippine sporting community.
Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells.
It's been packed for players like Alex Eala, Joao Fonseca, seeing the Filipino fans.
And that's why this crowd was never going to behave like a typical tennis audience. Eala is just 20 years old. She grew up in Quezon City, moved to Spain at 13 to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy, and spent years quietly building her game while her country watched and waited. The Philippines is a nation where basketball and boxing dominate the sports conversation. Tennis was niche, producing few global stars, until Eala happened at the 2025 Miami Open. She walked in as a wild card, ranked 140th in the world, and eliminated 3 Grand Slam champions, Yelena Ostapenko, Madison Keys, and Elena Rybakina, back-to-back in straight sets, reaching the semifinals as the first Filipino in WTA 1000 history to get that far. That run didn't just change her ranking, it changed the relationship between an entire nation and a sport. By the 2026 Miami Open, Eala was ranked number 29, a career high, and her fans had become something the WTA had genuinely never seen before. At the 2026 Australian Open just 2 months earlier, spectators packed her court to capacity, and hundreds were turned away at the gate. Her opponent, Alicia Parks, admitted openly that the crowd rattled her so badly in the first set that she lost it 6-0. Tennis forums, broadcast commentators, and fellow players all began using the same phrase. The Filipino fans had turned neutral venues into home courts for Eala wherever she played in the world. Miami was different only because of the scale. Hard Rock Stadium had the capacity, and the Filipino-American community in South Florida, one of the largest in the United States, showed up in numbers that made the event feel less like a tennis match and more like a national celebration. Now, here's where the story takes the turn that specifically affected Muchova. Eala lost badly. The Czech curse, as Philippine sports media had started calling it, extended to a brutal 0-13 matches against Czech players since turning professional in 2020, 0 wins, not 1. And this wasn't a close loss that could be explained away. This was a masterclass from Muchova, the kind of performance where the gap in experience and tactical precision was simply too large to bridge on that particular night. Eala herself didn't hide from it. In her post-match press conference, she was direct, composed, and unapologetically focused on what she could control next. That message, arriving just minutes after a 6-0, 6-2 defeat, landed in the stands in a way nobody expected. There was no chaos, no visible anger aimed at Eala. Instead, the fans responded with long, heartfelt applause that reportedly lingered well after she had walked off the court. And that is exactly when the story shifted from a simple match result to something deeply human. Muchova remained on court. She felt it. Let's be clear here, because this moment deserves truth over embellishment. Muchova didn't break down in tears at the net. What unfolded was quieter, yet in so many ways more revealing. She admitted to feeling nervous, even while cruising to a clear victory. She reflected on how hard it was to stay locked in when the energy and emotion in the arena were so overwhelming. And when she turned to the crowd, the Filipino fans who had just seen their player fall yet remained loud, present, and unwavering in their support, something shifted visibly in her demeanor. This is a player who has shown emotion on court before. At the 2025 U.S. Open, Muchova was openly moved mid-match when she spotted her ex-boyfriend in the stands. She never conceals what she feels. So when a crowd, not hers, not cheering for her, having just witnessed defeat, stirred that kind of reaction, it spoke volumes about the force of their energy. There's a kind of sportsmanship that goes beyond rivalry, cheering your player through a brutal scoreline without cruelty, without turning the moment into embarrassment, and then sustaining that support after the loss with quiet grace. That rarity hit Muchova hard. This moment isn't just about one match. Eala is set to start her clay season at the Linz Open in Austria on April 6, her first WTA 500 clay event. Miami's ranking damage is real. She loses roughly 270 points, dropping from 29 toward the mid-40s because she couldn't defend the 390 points from last year's semis. But culturally, the story is surging forward. The WTA launched the Philippine Women's Open in January 2026, the country's first WTA event fueled directly by IA's rise. Tickets to the final sold out before she even confirmed. Opponents notice, tournament directors notice, the WTA notices. The 10,000 Filipino fans in Miami didn't just support their player. They showed one of the world's best what true, unconditional loyalty looks like. Muchova won the match, but the fans won something else entirely. Standing across from that collective warmth and heartbreak, the Czech player couldn't ignore it. Eala lost 60 minutes of tennis, but she left Miami with something no ranking captures. Proof that her fans are a force the tennis world now watches. And that force brought Muchova to tears. That's why moments like this deserve attention. The scoreboard only ever tells half the story. If you want the other half every week, subscribe now, hit the bell and comment. Do you think Eala finally breaks the Czech curse in 2026? We read every one.